Hello, my royal lovelies. Welcome back to the channel, and of course, welcome to my home. We are now decorated for Christmas, and it's been a few days. It's actually been 5 days since I posted my last video, and I wanted to kind of update you on all the different things that have been occurring in the royal news world. So without further ado, this is a kind of update. So I'm reading this story and reacting to this one as it happens. I was going to say, I've already got written down palace legal action as my first topic, and it seems to have developed today because there was a story that the king is refusing, I don't blame him either, to let himself be emotionally blackmailed by his son Prince Harry over the royal race row that was reignited, of course, from the Dutch leak. I'm going to leak. Who thinks it was a leak? No one that I've spoken to thinks it was just an ordinary leak. Anyway, since that book was released. So, King Charles is refusing to let himself be emotionally blackmailed. A Dutch version of the book had to be hastily pulled, as we know. Here we go. Sources close to the king. Now, I know people are going to be wondering, why are you trusting sources? Because as it's transpired, sources tend to be correct. So sources close to the king. This might be a little bit of palace kickback, who Scobie accuses alongside, I mean, my goodness, the king and the Princess of Wales. I mean, as if. Seriously. For discussing Archie's skin, have said he is not concerned at being named and is instead full of energy. Well, we've seen examples of it. We've seen business as usual. We've seen the monarchy keeping calm, carrying on and keeping their dignity. So we are seeing, I suppose, little bits of what they're thinking and feeling coming out via sources, but they have not made any public statement, and I do think that is the correct way to go. It's what I advised kind of from the start. So if anyone was listening at the palace, thank you for taking my advice, or at least having very similar ideas about what you should do, because it stops this kind of tit for tat that I think the Sussexes like to engage in. I think that's what the Sussexes wanted, is what Omid Scobie most definitely wanted. So I think not playing the game is actually playing a very good game. And I do think that they are renewed and full of energy, because this has gone so much better than what they thought, what they feared. I think it may have gone. I think there was the only concern, I think, was how the public may perceive this. And actually, the public, barely a whimper has gone by, barely a murmur. So I think the king and the Prince and Princess of Wales and the rest of the royal family are definitely buoyed by the support from the British public. This has not blown up to be a big, massive, scandalous affair. It's talked about, yes, absolutely. I think people have been talking about it, but the reaction to it has not been negative. So I think the king and the Prince and Princess of Wales can take what's the word? They can take joy, happiness, security in the fact of the way that this has gone. And also it shows that the actual content of the cheerleaders book is actually a complete load of nonsense, because public support for the monarchy is strong. Endgame who? I know who it's almost endgame for. Yes, the cheerleader and his the cheerleader and his team, I think, are the ones who are facing the end game. And by the way, sales. Now, I know he posted a post saying about him being in the top bestsellers of the New York Times. Well, yes, it depends how far you go down the list. He's certainly not top 10, and he certainly wasn't top 15, because when I looked to see where he was on the chart, I couldn't see below 15, and he wasn't there. So I don't actually think it's been a very well received book, let's put it that way. So I wouldn't celebrate. I certainly wouldn't be celebrating yet. So yes, King Charles has informed friends he will not be emotionally blackmailed by his own son. Good on you. And it comes as the Dutch publishers hit back at the cheerleader after he blamed them. The audacity, blaming them for the error. The name was obviously there to begin with, which led to two names being revealed, as we know. So, like I said, the royal family have remained silent. By the way, I'm sorry about the light glare in my glasses. I'm filming this in the evening, so I've had to have my ring light. I normally just use the natural window, so I've tilted my glasses so you can't see it as much. See? Anyway, let's carry on. So yeah, that's all I'm going to go into, I think, with that particular story. Remain strong, remain firm, and I think that will sort everything out. The truth will always out in time. Now, this next story made me literally laugh out loud when I read it. So, Meghan apparently felt she had more of a right to speak than Catherine at certain events because she was a self-made woman, a source has claimed. So apparently Meghan was uneasy with the Prince and Princess of Wales being the superior royals. Well, I think we all kind of know that. There was nowhere to go for Meghan and Harry. They were always going to have plum roles within the royal family. They were always going to have roles within the Commonwealth. They were always going to go off on they're always going to go off on tours, for example, on behalf of the nation. But that wasn't enough for them, was it? They wanted to go higher and higher and higher, and of course you can't. Harry was always ever going to be a duke. His title was never going to be any higher because there kind of isn't really one, other than, of course, being king, which he would very unlikely have been. So Meghan and Harry would have had to have been happy and content with Duke and Duchess of Sussex, which I don't think they were. And then, of course, I think they looked to the Waleses, or the Cambridges as they were, and saw that they were going to be Prince and Princess of Wales, and then obviously King and Queen. There was no progression in terms of titles for Harry and Meghan. However, that doesn't really matter because you've got an HRH and you've got a title. So, you can still choose to do really good work and make the most of your role, which I don't think they were prepared to do. So the Duchess of Sussex was allegedly uneasy with the Prince and Princess of Wales being the superior royals in the palace hierarchy when she joined the royal family. This was particularly the case during a royal foundation. We remember that, don't we? The Royal Foundation Forum in 2018, a source said, where it was claimed the tension between the Fab Four was palpable. There were a few little tense moments, I do remember. So Meghan felt she was a self-made woman. Good on you, girl. Good on you, girl. Whereas Kate hadn't really had her own career, an insider told The Telegraph. The source said she seemed to feel like she had more of a right to speak than her sister-in-law, who had married into the family as an unknown, whereas Meghan regarded herself as a philanthropist who could teach the royals a thing or two about charity. Oh my goodness, that is ridiculous. Teaching the royal family a thing or two about philanthropy. Really? My goodness. I will not take it away from Meghan. She was a self-made woman, clawing her way up the ladder as she went, from the Deal or No Deal days to the dizzying heights of Suits. I am trying to raise an eyebrow. Yes, the dizzying heights of Suits. I'd never even watched it. Anyway, self-made woman, yes. Charity work, yes. But that does not give you more of a right to speak than someone else, just because you did that by yourself. Think to the likes of Princess Anne. Now, Princess Anne, a very clever woman, but she wasn't very academic at school. So when she left school at the earliest opportunity, she left and she became a full-time working royal. So she did not have a career of her own, but yet here she is doing amazing philanthropy work with Save the Children, various other charities. and she most definitely has a right to speak. Is Meghan saying that the likes of Princess Anne should not have a right to speak, or that she has more of a right to speak? Take her late Majesty. I mean, she never technically had a job or a career other than a little bit of a spell during the war years when she was, mending and fixing cars. I think it was the Royal Auxiliary Service. And yeah, she didn't have a career. Did the Queen not have a right to speak? Did Meghan have more of a right to speak than her late Majesty? It matters not where you've come from. What matters is actually what you've got to say. So regardless of the right to say it, Catherine most definitely has a right to say whatever she wants to say about whatever charity or organisation or cause she is championing, supporting, visiting. And Meghan most definitely does not have more of a right to that. They continue. I think Meghan found it difficult that the Royal Foundation was already a well-oiled machine by the time she got there. I can see that there is a bit of truth to that. It was most definitely a well-oiled machine that a certain someone could not try and take over. However, the cheerleader previously claimed that Catherine failed to foster a meaningful relationship with her sister. It's not just up to Catherine, it's up to Meghan as well to make a relationship work. I think they were cordial at best, but they were never going to be bosom buddies. I think they are and were too different in their approaches and outlook on life. It was also reported that Meghan received a lukewarm reception from the formal William and Catherine when her relationship with Prince Harry turned serious. I think on the face of it, the royal family were very welcoming to Meghan. She certainly was given more earlier than any other future royal bride marrying in to the royal family. And of course, Meghan was accomplished. She did have her own money. She did have her own career. I am not going to certainly take away from that. She, over the past so many hundreds of years, she was certainly, I think, a royal bride that came into the family that had her own means. However, it does not give her more of a right. As Harry wrote in his book Spare, when he first introduced Meghan to his brother, Kate had remained in the garden, which wasn't the welcome they had hoped for. Well, perhaps tending to Catherine's garden was more important than meeting Meghan. No, I mean, we don't know whether or not that's true. We certainly don't know the context behind that meeting. So I think, as with most things that Harry and Meghan claim, there's a little bit more to it than meets the eye that we're never going to get without a formal response. I think if the statements are to be believed that what Meghan was kind of saying about the right to speak, I've got written down here, narcissism and hero complex. It's almost like Meghan sort of wants to be that hero, wants to sweep in, save the day, wanted to, show a thing or two to the royal family about philanthropy, wanted to be that hero, always wants to be the one that's kind of celebrated, wants to kind of, show something that's broken and then sort of swoop in and work her magic and become that hero, which in itself is quite narcissistic, having, quite a very big opinion of yourself and your own self-worth, not to be confused with being confident. I think there's a difference between being confident, which is a good thing, and being a little bit narcissistic about it, not really caring who you hurt, who you step on. And we see examples of that in the way that they have operated and chosen to operate since leaving the royal family. I think there was a story I read, I'm just remembering the story over the past few days, where Harry sort of tried to say, we'll get to it in a moment, but where he basically tried to say that he didn't have a choice, that he had to leave. He didn't have to leave. It was most definitely a choice. You can either choose to stay or you can choose to go. I'm not, saying Harry should not have had the right to choose to go, but he most definitely did make a choice. Next on my list, we have the Duke of Westminster's wedding. So we all love a wedding. We all love the wedding buffet, whatever party food they're going to have. We all love to see what dress the bride is going to wear, all the rest of it. So we do love a high society wedding, and I can't wait till we see all the pictures and things coming back from that. But there was a big... And I still don't think we've got to the bottom of this story, my loves. There was the original report suggested that Harry and Meghan were not invited by the Duke of Westminster, who, by the way, is one of the wealthiest landowners, titled landowners in Britain at the moment. By the way, his title comes with land. The royal family's titles, apart from the Duke of Cornwall and the Duke of Lancaster, do not come with any assets. And of course, the Duke of Westminster is able to access those assets as money, as long as, you know, as long as it complies with how it's all set up. Anyway, he's rich. He's very, 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 very rich. So this is the high society wedding of the year, just to give it some kind of context about the importance of kind of being invited, being seen to being invited, and being welcome by the Duke of Westminster. So the report started coming in that an invite had not gone across the pond and had not reached Harry and Meghan because the Duke of Westminster didn't want to upset William and Catherine, because that's who he wanted to align more with, of course, the future king and queen. So very much suggesting that Harry and Meghan had been pushed to the very fringes when it comes to, I suppose, friends choosing who they support. Then today, I think we've had a few days ago, we had a story on the 6th of December coming out that Harry was given a save the date to the Duke of Westminster's wedding, but turned the invite down and said it would be too awkward if he and Meghan attended, which kind of beggars belief because they attended other functions. For example, the funeral of the Duke of Edinburgh, the funeral of Her Late Majesty. So, it kind of says to me more, if the Sussex version is to be believed, and that's a big if. By the way, so it's either they didn't get an invite or they did, but either way, it doesn't look good for Harry and Meghan. Whichever version is true, it doesn't look good, because either if they didn't get an invite, it shows, who friends are aligning with, and it's not the Sussexes. If they did get an invite and turned it down because it was too awkward, it shows that Harry and Meghan are feeling a little bit sheepish about what they've done recently, and also perhaps about the cheerleaders book coming out and their potential involvement with that, the ongoing fight against the Home Office for renewal of security when in the UK, all these different things. I think that's the awkward bit. And of course, Harry and Meghan, I think, are possibly, or Sussex sources, are alluding to the awkwardness coming from William and Catherine, when actually the awkwardness has been completely orchestrated from Harry and Meghan, what they've said, what they've done, their actions, their deeds, their intent has all been negative. And I think they're feeling sheepish. I don't think they want the confrontation. Imagine if William and Catherine, by the way, I don't think they would. I think at a high society wedding, William and Catherine know how to behave, and I don't think they would, start a slanging match with Harry and Meghan at somebody else's wedding. They're too classy. Catherine is way too classy for that. It's not going to be a case of handbags at dawn, but there could be a few daggers shot across the room, a few daggers coming their way. And I think it would be frosty and icy and spicy, most definitely. So I think Harry and Meghan don't want that. I think Harry and Meghan like to think that they are all correct, and that they've been correct, and that everyone agrees with them. And I think they don't want to turn up, and they don't want to face the music, and they don't want to own up to what they've done and the part that they have played in all of this. Remember, it's always someone else's fault. It's the royal family's fault. It's the government's fault for not, keeping up with their security. It's always somebody else's fault. It's never their own. And I think that is the awkward bit, that perhaps the only awkward bit that they are referring to, if you like. Royal invitations to weddings have always been a little bit contentious. I mean, at his sister's wedding, many years ago now, before, I think, just before Charles and Camilla were married and also announced their engagement, there was a hoo-ha about Camilla being invited to his sister's wedding, and of course she was invited in the end, but she wasn't seated next to Prince Charles as he was then. So there's always been a bit of a kind of furore over wedding invitations and the messages that they send. The next story I want to talk about is, of course, Harry fighting to get his security back when in the UK. So he has claimed that he and Meghan and the children cannot feel at home in the UK, and it's not possible to keep them safe. And that's what he's told the High Court. He said that he and his family were forced, I spoke about this earlier, forced to leave the country in 2020 and refuses to accept that he chose to step down from royal duties. He most definitely chose to step down from royal duties. Like I said before, there's a choice. You stay or you leave. He chose to leave. He wasn't pushed out. He could have stayed. He could have tried to work at things. He could have accepted things and his position within the royal family and how that was going to play out. But he chose to leave. I defend his choice to leave. I don't agree with what he's done since leaving, the choices, again, that he's continued to make. So no, he was not forced to leave the country. And in fact, the Queen, bless her heart, gave him a full year to make the final choice, to think about it, to see how things were going. And by that point, he already knew that his choice to leave included his security being removed in the UK. So again, you're faced with another choice. Are you going to return to the UK? If security is so important, if the UK is so important to you, then you have all that information that you need to make the choice. He made the choice to continue stepping back. He most definitely was not forced. The emotional witness statement comes as Harry prepares for his legal challenge against the Home Office, which would mean his taxpayer-funded armed protection could be restored if the case goes his way. He now says his children cannot feel at home in Britain. Well, they haven't got a home in Britain at the moment, if it's not possible to keep them safe. Well, it is possible to keep them safe because the arrangement at the moment is very ad hoc if he needs it, if he informs them, which he probably doesn't like the fact that he's now got to inform the Home Office of his intent to come to the UK and also what the nature of the visit is. If it's an official occasion invited to the royal family, then the likelihood is he will have protection, as has been the case on his visits since stepping back. If it's private business, private charity work, pleasure visits, then the likelihood is that he will not receive taxpayer protection. And he probably doesn't like having to justify and give the reasons for why and when he's coming in and out of the country. So again, choices. So at a hearing in London, the Duke's barrister said Harry did not accept that it was a choice. The lawyer read out an excerpt from the Duke's statement in which he said, "It was with great sadness for both of us that my wife and I felt forced to step back from this role and leave the country in 2020. Well, I don't believe that for a second. I don't think anyone else with half a brain cell does either. The UK is my home. The UK is central to the heritage of my children. And a place I want them to feel at home as much as where they live at the moment in the US." I mean, he has security in the US, so, does he not feel safe in the US? I know when in the UK they don't have access to all the information and they can't carry guns, but they can carry other weapons like tasers and whatever. So on the occasions when the protection is not provided in the UK, I think he would feel pretty safe, I have to say. And also, there's a lot of threat in the US as well. I mean, he doesn't have police protection in the US. So anyway, the UK is central to the heritage of my children and a place I want them to feel at home, as much as where they live at the moment in the US. I mean, at the moment in the US, is that a clue for returning? At the moment they live here, is that a threat? I don't know. That cannot happen if it's not possible to keep them safe when they are on UK soil. Well, I mean, let's put it this way. Ravek and the police and the government have made that decision that he is safe. So they've looked at all the information that they have and have made the conclusion that he's safe. And where he wouldn't be safe, they have carried on providing him with the protection. What is wrong with that? I cannot put my wife in danger like that, and given my experiences in life, I am reluctant to unnecessarily put myself in harm's way too. I mean, I just don't think that there are there's not the people in the UK that are going to sort of rise up and try to attack him. All of the royals, many celebrities have threats at some point or other, of which, if they are serious threats, the police will deal with them. Just because Harry doesn't have access to that information does not mean that the police won't, or the authorities won't. So let's just say Harry was in the UK and the police, got wind of some kind of threat or some kind of threat of attack, or the fact that Harry wasn't going to be safe. They would then send out police protection. That's what this ad hoc basis is all about. So just because Harry doesn't have access to that information, and by the way, his security guards and bodyguards wouldn't be allowed or have special dispensation to carry firearms anyway, other than perhaps tasers. So Harry now faces a wait for a judge's ruling on his legal action against the Home Office after a 2.5-day hearing at the Royal Courts of Justice concluded on Thursday. He's saying that the changes to his degree of publicly funded security, arguing it was unfair and unlawful. The majority of the proceedings were held in private, without the public or press present, due to confidential evidence over security measures, so you can quite understand why. Mrs. Fatima has previously told the court that Harry was singled out and treated less favourably in a decision to change the level of his personal security. She said Ravek failed to carry out a risk analysis and fully consider the impact of a successful attack on him. The barrister said a crucial part of Ravek's approach was an analysis carried out by the Risk Management Board, but it had chosen not to do this in Harry's case. She said it was the first time the body had decided to deviate from policy when it adopted a fair, inferior procedure in relation to critical safeguards. No good reason has been provided for singling the claimant out in this way, she said. But the government says Harry's claims should be dismissed, arguing that Ravek, which falls under the Home Office's remit, was entitled to conclude the Duke's protection should be bespoke and considered on a case-by-case basis. That's visit by visit. So James Eady for the Home Office said in written arguments that the decision not to undertake an RMB analysis but to conduct a more bespoke targeted assessment does not amount to treating Harry less favourably. He said Ravek had decided the bespoke process to be more effective to allow more specific and informed consideration by Ravek of the threat and risk picture for each visit. Harry knew when he stepped back that, it would have consequences. Choices have consequences. So James said it was simply incorrect to suggest that there was no evidence that the issue of impact was considered, adding that the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, Harry's mother, was raised as part of that decision. He added Ravek gave greater weight to the impact on state functions being lessened as a result of the change over likely significant public upset were to successful attack on Harry take place. So in other words, they are now seeing Harry as a stepped back royal, as less of a threat, less of a target, and I think less of a public upset, as if he was a full working royal, and he had not made all of the different choices that he'd made. Mr. Justice Lane will give his judgment over the case at a later date. So there we go. That's kind of all of that story. And I just think it's Harry trying to get this level of gravitas back. He did not expect, when he first stepped back, for his security to be removed. Remember the initial statement, his where he flounced out of the country dramatically with that statement, where he basically turned around and said that he would receive the state-funded protection. How wrong was he? He had not done all of his checks, and how mistaken he was. He felt like he was more important than he actually turned out to be. His importance came from being a working royal. Yes, he is now the son of a reigning monarch, but let's put it this way. He's fifth in line to the throne. When Beatrice and Eugenie lost their protection, remember they were grandchildren of a sovereign, HRHs, princesses of the blood royal, they lost their protection when they were fifth and sixth in line to the throne. So now Harry is fifth in line to the throne. He's not a working royal. He can't use his HRH for work purposes. He can in private, but not for work purposes. So they lost it. Why shouldn't he? There is precedent already set, which I'm sure that Ravek will be using to justify their decisions. Now, I'll talk more about this in a different video, but the royal family have been carrying on, as I said before, regardless, and I think that is the best thing to do. We've seen the recording, of course, of Catherine's Christmas Carol concert. We saw the adorable photos of the royal family out and about, and also there was that diplomatic reception where we saw the shortening of the royal family order yellow bow, and I think that is in readiness to receive the King Charles royal family order, which will be worn, I think, below. I think it's worn below. And we don't know what colour or what picture or portrait is going to be used on that. And we don't know when it's going to be debuted. So we're going to have to keep watching on that. So we've seen some stunning gowns and evening dresses being worn. We've seen some more stunning pieces of jewellery, including the Guilds of Great Britain and Ireland tiara being worn on Queen Camilla, or rather worn by Queen Camilla on her head. So we'll talk more about that in a few days' time. With regards to the editing of this video, I'm probably not going to include lots of photos in this video because I just want to get the video out as quickly as possible. But we will be back to full service in the next... for the oncoming week, basically. So there we go. Thank you for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to share on social media, and of course do hit the bell so that you know whenever I upload a new video. So from me, mwah, to you all, and goodbye.